Mr. Averio, if I may call you Lito, we've known each other for a while. Of course, call me Klink. Thank you for making time. I know we've been trying to schedule this for months.
Yes.
Some people might assume that NAMFREL's job was done in 2022, but really your work doesn't stop. I think I've been working on a plebiscite in Baliwag. I think you're also consulting BARM on the crafting on selection policy there, and of course, I think we will have special elections in Cavite to fill Justice Remulla's spot. But maybe before we get to that, on broad strokes, what are the concerns that NAMFREL has on our election system? How would you assess our election system?
Well, our general assessment of the 2022 elections, for example, while it was smooth, the operations was smooth, there were very little untoward incidents reported, very little election-related violence reported. We cannot characterize it as 100% okay.
Okay.
Simply because there were technology-related issues, like still there were machine breakdowns and the SD card issues, for example, or the issues of transparency of the processes. So those are the lingering issues that have to be addressed.
Okay.
Lalo na especially when it comes to the machines, because it has impact on the voters. If a machine breaks down, then the voters are impacted.
All right, but that's the interesting point there, because please correct me if I'm wrong. What I understand is that the machines that were used in the last national elections have reached their legal lifespan, right? So I think the country needs to decide now on 2025 and 2028 what system to use. I would assume that law prohibits us from using the same machines, because as you said, they already broke down already also, and you could expect that to happen more because they're not getting younger, right?
Yeah. Well, there's no law prohibiting the use of the previous machines.
Okay.
That's all up to the commission.
So that's on the table.
Yes.
Okay.
However, considering the technological age of the machine, some parts of those are really worn out already, as we've seen. So that's an issue that will have to be addressed. Do we use the existing machines, since COMELEC has bought the machines already, used for 2016, 2019, right, then the 2022 elections. That's an issue of whether they will set it aside or reuse the machines. If it's going to be reused, then they will have to be refurbished again.
Right.
Right? And there's no guarantee on the performance level of those machines.
Right.
In 2019, I think about 10% of the machines were new.
Okay.
Because they had to cover more clustered precincts than in 2019.
Okay.
2019, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 97,000, at least 97,000
right,
clustered precincts, whereas in 2022 there were 106,000 at least clustered precincts. So about 10% of those machines were new for 2022. Right. Now, there's been an outcry also against the technology because of the problems that have been encountered. So up on the table is considering new technologies, other technologies that may be used for our elections.
Okay. Right. So what does the law say? Will that have to be piloted first, or COMELEC has the free hand to say let's go ahead and do it on a national scale? But you're a technology expert as well, right? I mean, right, what's the sensible thing to do, if you do adopt, maybe a new system for 2025 and 2028?
Well, NAMFREL has been proposing, for example, setting up election standards, standards for elections, and defining really the type of an election system that we would like to use.
Okay.
So,
but isn't there one existing now, some sort of standard, or?
No, the current law, which is Republic Act 9369, provides for the minimum capabilities of the election technology to be used. Okay. Whereas it's different from setting up standards. For example, setting up standards on transparency. What kind of transparency do we need?
I see.
Standards on security.
Right.
security solutions that we would like to put in the machine. And there are other sets of standards, no, that we
Right.
can apply on elections.
What about, people talked about in the last elections about social media and maybe particularly the negative influence of social media, trolling. Is that a big issue? Or I know we're a bit distance away from the last elections, so maybe looking at it from a purely rational point of view, is that a serious thing that we should be looking at?
It is serious matter to be looked into, because
Okay.
of misinformation, disinformation, or
Yeah.
malinformation, that
Yeah.
goes, especially on election time.
Okay.
Right? We are regarded as the petri dish, actually,
Okay.
on social media when it comes to elections.
Okay. When
Because
you say we, who are we talking about? The
the
Philippines?
Philippines.
Okay.
The Philippines, because it's where test for the social media influence on elections
Okay.
was done in 2016.
Okay.
And that spilled over to the U.S. elections, the U.S. presidential elections, especially the last one 2 years ago.
Right.
Okay.
The
So it
January
is-
6th attack. Yeah.
Yes. So it is really an issue, and it's really a growing concern. Social media influence, in particular the misinformation that.
And now recently Brazil had something similar, right?
Right.
Do you see that? What's the likelihood of that happening in the Philippines, you think? I mean, you've been working with election reform, for a long time. I mean, is that something that Filipinos are vulnerable to, you think?
It's an issue that arose only in the last decade.
Okay.
Right? It's technology related because a lot more people now have access to social media via the internet, right? So plus anybody can spread word on social media.
Yeah.
Right, even just snippets of information, good information, bad information, but people do not read through. They do not do their research. Not unlike in traditional media, newspapers, or radio and TV. Journalists do their research first before they present an issue to the public. Okay? Whereas in social media, anybody can claim.
On top of mind, you can say whatever you want, and
Right.
no filters.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of dangerous because then a lot of more people would tend to believe, especially negative news. Negative news really spreads faster than good news, right?
What about the traditional problems you had with elections? The voter intimidation, vote buying. Are those still problems in the Philippines based on the past few elections you've seen? I mean, even the ones that are happening on the local level,
Yeah, there's still instances of election-related violence, in the past elections since we automated the elections in 2010. Okay, but in 2010, for example, there was I think in Batangas, Taysan, Batangas, where an election worker died because the school was burned down. And there are traditional areas that we consider as traditional hotspots when it comes to the elections.
Okay.
So at NAMFREL, we really watch out for those. But it had the election-related violence, the instances have gone down statistically.
Yeah.
Okay? So there are fewer election-related violence reported, for example, in the 2022 elections.
You're working also with the BARM officials on crafting their election policies, right? Is that still a hotspot? I know Mindanao, many areas of Mindanao were hotspots before. What are your observations there? Any encouraging things happening, or still the same?
Right now, it's pretty peaceful there. Right?
Okay.
NAMFREL sent an election expert mission during the Maguindanao plebiscite. This was dividing the province of Mindanao into two.
Okay.
Right. So this was in November, and there was, from what I compare, because I also go to Mindanao,
Right.
Outside of the elections, there's less tension, right, in the atmosphere.
That's good, right?
Which is good.
Huh?
Now, the success, I think, of the BARM hinges on them being able to move forward. Let's say, for
Okay.
example, in crafting their election laws.
Okay.
They are in the process of crafting the BARM electoral code as well as the local government code. So it all hinges in that. So again, it depends. There's a mix kasi there's a different mix of
what are
people.
the challenges and what is at stake if you don't get it right?
Well, they just really have to get it right, you know, to keep the peace in that region, right? Of course, there are a lot of challenges then because the parliament, you'll have a mix of BARM, if we understand it, is a mix really of different cultural tribes. Okay, you have the Maguindanaos, you have the Tausugs, you have the, you know, there's this whole mix.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's socially there's a different behavior between the mainland Mindanaoans like Maguindanao and Lanao del Sur, for example, vis-a-vis the island provinces covered by BARM. This is Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi. So socially they are very, very, very diverse. So you have to put them in one.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So, but you know, very quickly before we go on break, are you optimistic that they will get it right, or are you you're still waiting to see?
Well, with a lot of support getting into the BARM area, I think they will get it right eventually.
Okay, good. So we'll have to get back there. We'll take a quick break with Mr. Lito Averio of NAMFREL.